Welcome to the TEFL Training Institute podcast, the bite-sized TEFL podcast for teachers, trainers, and managers. Hello everyone, welcome to our podcast. Today we've got two special guests. One is Jessica Keller, who has been working in recruiting for more than 15 years.
We talked to Jessica, and I guess a lot of it's you as well, Tracy, about sexism in TEFL.
Yeah, and another one is?
David Tait. So David's a published poet, an author, and works as an ESL writing teacher in China. David is talking about homophobia, and neither Jessica nor, I think, Tracy nor David, their examples of people they mention are about their current colleagues. So, I'm a man. So as far as I know, I don't. I'm often surprised when both of you tell me about sort of sexist things that happen at work. And I think before, I always used to think of sexism as like someone lowballed your pay or they didn't give you a promotion because you're a woman. But I think from what both of you have told me over the years, a lot of it's just people treating you differently or condescending to you or being more aggressive towards you, right? And that's something that's completely new to me. It would be super interesting to get, I think, just like one or two examples of things that happen, and then one or two examples of what you do as women, obviously, to get around that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think about how people speak to you like you're a child. Someone I've worked with before, that definitely every time he speaks with me, when he asks for examples of very specific things, it's not open-ended like, what do you think about this? You know, it's more of like yes or no kind of questions.
Like this person is control the conversation. Yeah.
And definitely speaks in like a pitch also that's very talking down, like you're either...
Yes.
I don't want to say younger, but it definitely does appear more of like talking to someone who's lesser, you know, than intelligent as this guy is. It makes you want to really get out of the conversation as quickly as possible.
It's quite interesting. This is like male colleagues or whoever and talking to the female colleagues. But I heard from my former colleague, actually it's the way around. And it used to be a female colleague, and then she speaks the way that you described earlier into the male colleague.
Oh, really?
And apparently this still bothers the male colleague so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
How can you tell with these that the person is doing it because they're sexist?
I can't say for all certainty that somebody does something just because of gender roles, but yeah, I mean, I do feel like there's a number of people, like the one that I was talking about, is very different with male colleagues, right?
Wow, okay. Oh, because you can observe those other interactions then.
Yeah. How you communicate with people is so ingrained. So who knows, like, what people's early family life is, what learned communication they have.
But for me, I mean, I probably have the same proposal, right? And just approach it to either the manager or the colleagues. I mean, they're male. And it's just within the short period of time. So these ideas have been delivered again to the same person, same way. And just by myself. And it's never been accepted. But one day, I somehow changed my mind. I said, okay, I'm going to ask one of my male colleagues to go to this conversation or meeting and then to have the same proposal and see how it's going to change. And the result is interesting. And
What,
then
the person accepted the proposal? Yeah.
Yes. And I happily accepted.
Well, that's a lot more hard evidence.
Yeah.
That's something I was talking about because that's pretty cut and dry. And I think that that's a really good example for that reason.
And also another thing is the language. So if I'm using my first language, it's difficult for me to, let people accept my idea. But if I'm speaking English, and the possibility is a lot higher. I think that depends on which language, what first language the person you are talking to. For me, I use English because I feel better because the person I'm talking to, the first language is not English.
Oh, so you're saying you almost carve out some advantage for yourself?
Yes.
Because you can then show your superiority in in
Yeah.
English.
Yeah.
So that's one strategy then, is it, that you've developed with, I presume you're saying, male Chinese managers?
For sure.
Well, I think just being confident and not backing down, and not being afraid of the label of being bitchy, right?
Yeah.
Which is what comes along with being confident in a business environment, I think, for women.
But another thing is, because still a lot of people, they have that kind of concept of you're a lady and you probably are too emotional. So that's why if you have this kind of opportunity to present yourself, so please make sure we're not being emotional. We give a lot of facts and we do contribute. I think that's the great opportunity to change people's impression of you. Especially in the professional context.
I don't know, but I would guess, like with a lot of other cognitive biases, probably, I don't know what you think about this, but I would guess there's a lot of men that are not aware that they are sexist. What tips do you have for men to be less sexist, or to be aware maybe of when they could be perceived as being sexist?
That's very easy for me. I would say just don't dominate every conversation.
I think my advice is please use appropriate name or title, that how you call the person or how you call the lady. At least in China, in a lot of companies, I think older male managers likes to call like female colleagues or younger female colleagues, especially like, oh, you're a little girl.
I was just thinking something like that. If, like when people say, "Oh, that's cute," or something like that.
Yeah,
like that type of. And I don't think they mean it as demeaning, but like it still comes across as a like, because it would say that to another guy.
yeah.
Like, or at least not in most circumstances.
Hi again, David Tait.
Hello, Ross.
So, David, you just written a new book, which is called?
It's called The AQI.
Which is about?
It's all about, well, a lot of stuff about living within contemporary China, a little bit of stuff about air pollution, and also quite a lot about homophobia as well.
Great. So, I thought we could ask you about homophobia and some of your experiences with that, since we're looking at different types of discrimination, and I think this is one of the least talked about. And yeah, some of your personal experiences, if you'd like to share them, and advice for people that might be in the position of being discriminated against because of their sexual orientation.
Yeah, sure. I'm not particularly excited by my sexuality. It is what it is. I've been out since I was 16. I'm 32 now. I've been out more than half my life. It's not a big deal. When I came to China at first, I thought it would be a big deal. And then I met people. And they're like, hello! Oh, okay. It is a thing. It's kind of one of those strange things whereby if I say I'm gay, and I'm very open about it, then I think it's kind of acceptable by virtue of me being a relatively confident white male. But I think it's much harder for people that are lesbian. I think it's really, really hard for local people to say it, particularly. And they can become quite discriminated against in the workplace because of it and not taken seriously. And I know people who've been gay and been openly gay and working with young learners. This is a really thorny issue at the moment, of course, but I know somebody who's like a teacher of young learners and was very open at first about being gay, and parents would complain that it's not appropriate for their child to be studying with LGBT teachers because he was very open about it.
Can I ask you to go back then? Because what did he do? And do you have any advice for people in that kind of situation?
He didn't do anything. He just was in the teacher's office and said, yeah, I'm gay, did a normal teaching job. For some reason, I don't know why, somebody in the teaching office spread some rumours or talked about that. It became common knowledge among people wider than the teacher's office, and then it became a problem because parents complained.
And did he still keep his job?
I think he decided to leave.
That's pretty unfortunate when it gets to that.
Yeah.
So did he regret that decision then to be so open?
I think it made him think twice about it in the future. And I think you'll find that there are a lot of people that kind of don't... I mean, I'm gay and I'm very open about it, and anyone who cares to listen to this will know it. If you didn't know it, I'm terribly sorry, mother. You know, but I think it's one of those things where you can be quite open about it, but you don't need to talk about it or feel the need to talk about it. And quite often I find myself, like if students ask me, do you have a girlfriend? Rather than saying, no, I'm gay, I would just say, oh, I don't. And I don't do that from any sense of shame. It's just to keep things simple. But there is a bit of a needle about that, isn't there? Why can't somebody just say, actually, I don't like girls very much? Fortunately, for the most part, most expats, and indeed most locals who go into teaching, I would say, are relatively liberal, relatively open-minded people. You'll get some conservative people, you get some very, very conservative people, but on the whole, most people are quite chilled out. And the fact that they've moved to the other side of the world to experience another culture suggests that they're quite open-minded. So somebody sort of saying, I'm gay, isn't a big deal. But you will get situations whereby actually that can be seen as being a big deal, and some fuss can be made over that.
So what about then, what's more, as someone who's moved from maybe a more open society to a less liberal society, what advice would you have for someone who is LGBT moving to, either China or somewhere else that might not be as open as what they're used to?
My advice would always be yourself, because who else are you going to be? Ultimately, you're going to potentially have people who will discriminate against you, but you're also going to have a lot of people that don't, and most people are good at heart. It's really tough as well for me to answer that question, because I can't kind of answer the question for all LGBT people and the experiences they've had. And for me, for instance, I'm ultimately somebody who a lot of people will know me for a while and they would say, oh, I didn't know you were gay. And so I wonder if that has an impact on the way that I am discriminated against compared to some friends who are quite obviously in that person's eyes gay, who say, oh yeah, that is a gay person, that is what a gay person is. There's always going to be discrimination, unfortunately. If you're moving to a place with less liberal, more conservative values, you're going to run the risk of more discrimination. But there's always going to be good people. And particularly if you're moving to China, rest assured there are lots of gay people here. So, good. Maybe I should also say as well, like one thing to definitely include would be, because of my personality and assuredness, I suppose, I don't particularly have much time for people being homophobic towards me. So I guess in that respect, I've been quite lucky in that people haven't given me much of a hard time. But I think that homophobia definitely exists within the industry. I think it's often quite shameful, and I don't really think it has much of a place, and it's something we should all be considerate of and make sure that we ourselves are not affected by it.
So this is one sensitive topic, and I think, and maybe people get really offended, or they feel really unhappy, or they feel, uncomfortable when they're talking about it. I really appreciate Jessica and Dave, and they're very open-minded and willing to share how they experience in their life.
Yeah, I think we're all aware of, for example, some of the discrimination that happens in TEFL, for example, for quote-unquote non-native English teachers, but maybe we don't talk enough about some other forms of discrimination. And if any of you have been through anything like that and you want to share your experience or your advice, then please leave us a comment.
Bye.
Bye everyone. Thanks for listening.
For more podcasts, videos, and blogs, visit our website www.tefltraininginstitute.com.
If you've got a question or a topic you'd like us to discuss, leave us a comment.
And if you want to keep up to date with our latest content, add us on WeChat at TEFL Training Institute.
And if you enjoyed our podcast, please rate us on iTunes.